Hey guys, it's SF, and after a long while, there is a new batch that's coming up in NA, so going to commentate on them, see their uses, see their stats, and see their everything, and of course future potential as well. So 2 4-stars, 3 5-star hatcher for the hatcher, 3 5-stars for the hatcher, and 2 descents. First up, let's start with the 4-star, and that is Beowolf. Let's go directly to the evolved version. So Paladin, hit is a bounce, type is balance, ability is drone breaker, gauge shot of no damage wall, strike shot is a bash and a knock up, and bump combo is EX lasers L. Now, usefulness, there is some fire dungeons that have damage walls like Fireworm and Vendetta. You can, and it has the same ability set as Freyr, but not that popular in my opinion in terms of JP. But I think it's a he. No, it's a she. She is useful just because she can break drones and then free up people, as well as having a no damage wall as well. But not that popular, probably because everybody has Kenshin, basically Kenshin, and you rather bring her. You'd rather bring Kenshin instead of this girl. But if you don't have any other monsters, then she's not bad for Vendetta, like I said. You can bring her, and then you can break drones, bring like Fiend Slayer out like Independence or Darkworm, and it'll free them up very easily. So that's one of the better uses for her. But outside of that, there's not much. Fireworm is pretty easy, and you can just stack no damage wall monsters. But if you need a water no damage wall monster for Vendetta, then she is not a bad choice. Relatively high HP for a 5-star as well, better than like around the same as Okuta Soji. So if all you care about is freeing up your Fiend Slayers for that dungeon, then she's not a bad pick. Now let's look at the second one, Enkidu. Enkidu, she is kind of unique, but not that popular just because she's a 5-star as well. But Minesweeper and Gauge Shot of Dark Slayer. She is a Demi-Hume, a speed type, and a pierce. Strike Shot is a speed up and power up, and Lockdown Shockwave 6 for the bump. Now there are some dungeons that are really good for her. Death Skull is one, and as well as Slash. If you want a Minesweeper for Slash, then she is probably the best one out there in terms of 5-stars. I think, and you don't need that much HP for Slash either, just because you can avoid most of his attacks. And the last bar is only the one with the gravity barriers, so it's not that you can get your, and basically you just strike shot there, so it's not that hard. And she is a pierce, so she can grab mines very easily. Now she can be used for like stuff like the fire Carnage if you need a Minesweeper there, but as well as Princess Sakuya, but there's not much use for the Dark Slayer there. But in terms of dark dungeons that have mines, it's Death Skull and Slash. If you need help for that, then she is not a bad pick. Or if you want to just have fun with those dungeons, then you can just bring her just for the kicks, like bring all 4 Enkidus and then rape Death Skull with their Dark Slayers, and hopefully you can win. You can probably win, in my opinion, if you have 4 Enkidus all maxed out for Death Coil, but it's going to be harder than it should be. But that's my way of having fun for Monster Strike, using not really viable parties into dungeons. But if you want to use her, then that's one of the places. So Death Coil and Slash. Future, there's not many dark dungeons with Minesweepers, so there are dungeons with mines, but not very much use for both of her abilities at once besides Death Skull and Slash. Now let's look at the 5-star Hatcher monsters. First up is Gilgamesh. Evolved version, No Warp and Demi-Hume Slayer M. He is a D&T power type and a pierce. Strike Shot is a bash and a spread shot, and piercing spread shot EL3 for the bump. Now let's look at the Ascend version. Still D&T power type, and as well as Pierce ability is a wood resist and a gaze shot of no warp. Strike shot is the same as the evolved version, bash and spread shot. Close homing, not close homing, close range spread shot 9 for the bump, and then piercing spread shot EL2 for the sub. Now, recommendation is of course the evolved version, just because he is a very good pick for Kushinada. Now, a lot of people just brings Izanamis and Nomas into that dungeon, but he's not a bad pick. He can replace one Izanami or one Sakamoto Ryoma. And why? Because he brings more consistent and reliable DPS into Kushinada's, especially on the last stage, where it's just warps and there's no gravity barriers. And if you don't have a good position on Noma, then Noma's going to be useless in that dungeon. You're just there for strike shot. Hopefully you get into that fine line between the warps and just to do really decent damage. But even with the Roma, where you probably get 1 million if you go perfectly, this guy can go over 1 million, like 1.3 million if you from anywhere on the map, just as long as you hit the weak spot a few times, 1 or twice, then probably go around 1 million to 1.5 million in terms of damage per turn. And of course he is a no warp, so you don't have to worry about positioning for him. But and as well, if you have a team full of Izanamis, then there is some chance where you won't be able to DPS him down depending on the positioning of your Izanamis. It all depends on your rebound lasers to do the DPS and not the actual bounces or the actual movement of Izanami. So he's really a good pick for getting a relatively more stable clear, but it really depends on if you can't really DPS down the last bar, because getting him into the last bar may be a lot more difficult, but once you get there, then he's pretty much a sure win. As well as strike shot also procs, also the bump combo procs is Demon Slayer, and as well as strike shot can deal some decent amount of damage towards Kushinada herself. Now, another reason why that evolves better, just and not the Ascend version, the wood resist outside of Kushinada, the no warp there's not many fire dungeons with no warps. So, I mean, not fire dungeons, a wood dungeon with lots of warps. And of course there is Brahma. Brahma is also a wood resist and a no warp monster, but the difference is that Brahma's strike shot is an AoE blast, so it's a lot stronger than this guy right here. And if you're gonna decide if you bring Brahma or Gilgamesh, the Ascended version, then I would definitely go 100% on Brahma. So, but if you're deciding on evolved version of Gilgamesh versus Brahma, I'll go for Gilgamesh. So go for the evolved version of Gilgamesh, and you can probably get a good clear on Kushinada. I have used him in Kushinada onto one of my videos in my channel, so search for that. Just search Gilgamesh and you'll probably be there. Now let's look at the second one is Chuliann. Chuliann is or Chuliann. Let's look at the evolved version. So Paladin, Pierce monster, balance type, no gravity barrier. Strike shot is new for a lot of NA players, is a speed up, power up, and an all null strike shot. So what all null means is she is unaffected by damage walls, gravity barriers, and warps for that dungeon, as well as mines. So all four, so mines, warps, damage walls, and gravity barriers. She is a no gravity barrier herself, so that doesn't really matter that much, but she does get a speed up and a power up as well. So it's very, very strong, very, very strong strike shot. It's only for that shot only. It doesn't go on towards like shots afterwards. And piercing homing 8 for the bump combo. Ascendant version, Paladin, balance, and now becomes a bounce. Ability is Minesweeper, gain shot of no gravity barrier. Strike shot goes to bash and a laser. Homing piercing 8 and homing piercing 4 for the bump and the sub. Now, to be frankly honest, I've seen both, and both have their uses. Just because the Ascend version has the Minesweeper and has the Minesweeper ability, there are some dungeons where you can use the Minesweeper as well as no gravity barrier as well. But I do go for the evolved version. A lot of people go for the evolved version just because of the strike shot is more powerful, and that when you're at the Minesweeper, you can always summon for Kushinaga as a Minesweeper. You don't most of the time you don't need all 4 Minesweepers. So if you need a Minesweeper, then you go for Kushinaga or maybe a Yugura Shield. But I think Kushinaga is more better just in case that dungeon has Minesweepers and no gravity barriers So some people just summon her for Kushinaga, and she is a very good pick for Tsukuyomi. She is the next impossible dungeon, the dark impossible dungeon. The evolved version is a lot better just because she's a pierce monster instead of a bounce in the ascend version, but both do work. They both have the same threshold, but why evolves better than the ascend in terms of that dungeon is that she's pierced. The evolved version is pierced, and the bump and the strike shot is a lot more powerful. Now the ascend version, the bounce, not a lot of beginners for that dungeon will bring bounce monsters, just because it's a lot harder to position to angle. So if you have this girl, then go for the evolved version. So she is a very good starter for beginners, just because you can just evolve and not ascend, because the ascend materials are relatively hard for beginners in my opinion. Now let's look at the last one, is Siegfried. Let's look at the evolved version. Paladin, bounce, balance type, and ability is Dragon Slayer and Geisha with no warp. Strike shot is speed up, and then for amount of turns, then he is immune to spread shots and homing attacks. And bump combo is homing destruction 8. Let's look at the ascend version. Paladin as well, bounce and balance just like the evolved version. Ability is no damage wall and Geisha of no warp. Strike shot is a speed up power up and a counter just like Aladdin. And bump combo is a one-way laser EL 24k. He's not like a Hunter King one-way laser. And then homing 8 for the sub bump. Now very obvious kind of that the ascend version's a lot better than the evolved version, just because there's not many dragon bosses, and even though there are, those dungeons are relatively easy, just like Fireworm and Darkworm. So go for the ascend version. The ascend version is probably number 1 pick for Izanagi. It really depends in my opinion. But for beginners who don't know that dungeon very well, then this guy is probably number 1 pick. It's over Aladdin in my opinion, just because of the bump combo is a lot more stronger if you can position well. Well, that's it if you position well, but Izanagi, you just have to be below, and then you'll probably deal some damage relatively easy, as well as no attributes for the mini bosses as well, and all of them are mostly on the middle, except for Izanami, the Izanami stage where you kind of have to position, but that's only for the first bar. Then you can use Kushinaga to position to Yamato Takeru, which is basically the same position for both those bars for Kushinaga and Yamato Takeru. And then once Siegfried's in the middle, then you're pretty much set for the rest of the game, because all those positioning for the bosses besides Izanami, they're all in the middle, except for the last one where he moves, but that's where you use strike shots, meteor strike shots like Izanami's and the Eclipses, where you can probably finish it off really easy. So he brings decent DPS in that dungeon, so it's really good. But outside of Izanagi, then I would think like Eclipse is better, just because you can freely move, and of course one-way lasers are not that prominent in the current JP meta, so you'll probably bring him for the abilities if you're just for a filler. But if you have like other no damage wall or no warp monsters like that set, I think Aladdin's better in the future than this guy. Eclipse is better, Lancelot's better, just because you can freely move, and one-way laser is not that good anymore. But for Izanagi himself, then this guy is probably better than all those other monsters, maybe besides Eclipse, just because their uses are kind of different. But so that's terms of your judgment, but this guy's top pick for that dungeon. Now let's look at the Hatcher monsters. First up, Water, Mary, Antoinette. The evolved version. Demon Hume, Pierce, balance, no gravity barrier for the ability. Low HP though, as strike shot is a meteor strike shot, sleeping meteor, just like Lilith's. And then bomb combo is lock on shockwave 6. Let's look at the Ascend version. Demi-Hume, Pierce, balance, and ability is no gravity barrier and gauge shove of Fiend Slayer. Now HP goes up by a bit, so that's one of the reasons why I think Ascend's better, but I'll get to another point of that. But strike shot is the same as Rose Monster Striker, where it deals great damage when you hit the weak spot. And then bomb combo is lock on shockwave 6 and then homing 8. Now I do recommend Ascend just because of the Fiend Slayer as well as the higher HP. Strike shot is hard to use, but it's not that bad to use. But for me, her dungeon's relatively easy. So, and if you read my Max Luck series on my blog, then I mentioned Mary a few times in those blog posts, just because her dungeon is relatively easy, and she does have a Fiend Slayer as well as a no gravity barrier. And her strike shot, you can deal good damage if you have the right situation, if you position well, and you get lucky with the warp. So, and then you can always use like Margaret strike shot to put out more warp, more weak spots. But for max lucking, I'm kind of torn between should I or should I not, because I do have a Queen Butterfly, and there's not many use for the Fiend Slayer outside of the really easy dungeons like who'd you call it, like Origa and stuff like that. So she is better for Surtur if you want to go that route, and then Surtur can go to Murasame, so maybe she's a better pick than Queen Butterfly for that. But it really depends on what you really want. But as a max luck for the no gravity barrier, then I would say Queen Butterfly is better just because of the higher stats. And strike shot's not that. Strike shot for Queen Butterfly is a little more consistent besides Mary. But if you have the luxury to max luck, then go for it. If she's your first max luck, then she's not a bad pick, just because she gets more rounds. She shows up more often just because the hatchers right now and stuff like that. But if you have a Queen Butterfly max luck, it's your call. You don't have to, you don't need to, but if you want to, then sure, go for it, because Queen Butterfly can easily replace Mari for most of the dungeons she's good for, even for like Surtur. So it's really your pick. Now let's go for the last one. Is Nero. Evolve form. So he is a Demonmancer, and bounce, balance, ability is dark resist and gauge shot of no damage wall. Strike shot is a giant laser like Tiger, and bump combo is vertical laser L. Ascend version, Demonmancer, bounce, balance, ability of no damage wall, and strike shot is the same as the evolve version, giant laser, and then vertical laser L and S for the sub bump. Now evolves is a lot better just because of dark resist. And not much more, and a little bit higher on the HP. But his uses, in my opinion, Ascend materials. You can make them, but if you have an Izanagi, then he's a lot better, just because of, especially after the buffs. But this guy, Nero's better than the current Izanagi in NA. But once Izanagi gets the buffs, then Izanagi takes over Nero. And Nero's dungeon's hard, really hard, especially for beginners. So for vets it's not that bad, but as long as you have a Salto Mishiri, then for vets it's not that bad and stuff like that. But basically for Ascend materials, just because Nero is a Ascend material for Hikari as well as Nanami, so you might want to save him up for the future, so you don't have to do it later when they're up, when the ascensions come. But that's still months away, so if you just started out, then you don't have to go crazy. If you just started, then you don't have to go crazy on trying to get them or waste orbs just to get them. But if you have the luxury to just save it now, then go for it. But that's pretty much it. And in terms of good monsters for the Hatcher monsters, so number 1 in my opinion is Chuliann, number 2 is Siegfried, and number 3 is Gilgamesh. But it's really hard to decide, just because there are some specifics for them. There are specific impossible dungeons for them, but outside of it, I think Chuliann is the better in terms of future JP meta. Like, she's used a lot more in the future, but Gilgamesh is not that well outside of Kushinaga, and Siegfried is really replaceable, especially with Eclipse, Lancelot, and even the new impossible dungeon. Monster Daigokuten has the same ability set, and they are a lot better. Daigokuten is a lot better than Siegfried, so I think the best one is Chuliann in my opinion, but Gilgamesh is not bad for beginners to get Kushinaga, and Siegfried's not bad for beginners to get Izanagi. So it's really your choice of where to roll. If you get them, then it's great, good for you. But future, only Chuliann is the better one. So that's it for me. I hope you guys like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.